Welcome to WorldXplain. Picture this for a moment. You're walking down a brightly lit retail aisle. You've got the soft hum of the fluorescent lights above you, shelves of perfectly organized products stretching out in front of you. It all feels so mundane, right? So entirely anonymous. But beneath the surface of those everyday, boring transactions, there is a modern mystery playing out. It's this vast, completely invisible architecture of data that is quietly tracking our every move, our every choice, and sometimes our deepest, most closely guarded secrets. Today, we are unraveling an absolute landmark case in predictive analytics. It's a story that honestly sounds like pure science fiction, but it happened in the real world, and it involves one of the biggest retail giants on the planet. We're talking about complex algorithms, hidden behavioral patterns, and a massive collision between cutting-edge data science and basic human privacy.
Our story starts back in early 2012, in a totally ordinary Target store just outside of Minneapolis. A man marches right through the sliding glass doors, and he is absolutely furious. He demands to speak to the store manager immediately. In his hand, he's tightly gripping this piece of promotional mail, and he just slams it down on the counter. "Are you trying to encourage her to get pregnant?" he asks. The mailer is covered in cheerful pictures of smiling infants, maternity clothing ads, and coupons for nursery furniture. But here is the catch. This mailer wasn't addressed to him. It wasn't addressed to his wife. It was addressed directly to his daughter. His daughter, who was literally still in high school. You can just imagine the heavy, thick tension in the air, the sheer disbelief and anger in this father's voice as he confronted the bewildered manager.
Chapter 1. The Unbelievable Confrontation. The manager was completely caught off guard and apologized profusely. But a few days later, when he called the father back to apologize again, the father stopped him. His tone had completely changed. He said, "I had a talk with my daughter. It turns out there's been some activities in my house I haven't been completely aware of. She's due in August. I owe you an apology."
Okay, let's just dive into this for a second, because we really need to let the sheer shock of that revelation sink in. Target figured out a teenage girl was pregnant before her own father did. Just think about that. An algorithm sitting silently on some server farm in a corporate basement knew a family's most intimate, life-altering secret before the family itself did. And it didn't listen to their private conversations, it didn't sneak a look at her diary, it literally just watched the data. So, the ultimate question we have to answer here is how on earth did a big box retail store achieve this unbelievable, almost unsettling level of predictive power?
Chapter 2. Your Secret Digital Fingerprints. Let's look at the hidden infrastructure of predictive analytics that makes this kind of tracking possible.
The absolute foundation of this entire system relies on something Target calls a guest ID. A guest ID is basically a unique placeholder tied to your credit card, your MAME, or your email address that keeps a history of everything you have ever bought. Think of it like a permanent, unique digital file folder in a massive database. It's tethered to your real identity through these reliable anchors. You might change your physical address, but you probably aren't changing your name or your primary email very often. Once they create this ID for you, it essentially acts as a giant vacuum. It quietly and continuously records a comprehensive line-by-line history of absolutely everything you buy, whether that's in their physical stores or on their website. It becomes this living, breathing, digital dossier of your entire life's consumption habits.
Let's move to the next piece of the puzzle and see how this builds. Because Target doesn't just stop at generating a list of your past receipts. They follow a relentless, escalating three-step process. Step 1, they assign you that unique guest ID. Step 2, they meticulously track your purchase history over months and years. But Step 3 is where the real data science, and honestly, the real surveillance happens. They augment that purchase history with demographic data. They take internal data and merge it with massive amounts of external information. Sometimes they get this from surveys you fill out, but mostly they just buy it from massive third-party data brokers. So we're talking about taking your weekly grocery list and combining it with your estimated income, your marital status, your education level, and the specific neighborhood you live in. In an instant, your simple, boring store receipt morphs into a deeply detailed psychological and demographic profile.
Chapter 3. Decoding the buying patterns. So, how did they actually find the pregnancy signals in all that noise?
Well, they started by analyzing the data from all directions to find useful patterns. The analysts at Target took a vast trove of data from a very specific control group, female customers who had explicitly signed up for Target baby registries in the past. Basically, women who had already voluntarily raised their hands and said, "Hey, I'm having a baby." Target's data scientists used these women as the perfect answer key to train their massive machine learning models. They weren't looking for obvious things like cribs or baby bottles, right?
everyone knows pregnant women by those. They were running these incredibly complex algorithms to search for subtle, seemingly ordinary, everyday purchases that suddenly spiked or shifted in direct correlation with a woman's pregnancy timeline. They were looking for the needle in the data haystack.
And this brilliantly illustrates how human biology can literally be mapped onto retail receipts. They built a timeline tracking habits through the first 20 weeks, into the second trimester, and then nearing the delivery date. The data scientists were able to construct a clear, chronological map of pregnancy clues based entirely on shifting shopping habits. They broke down the biological journey into these distinct phases, and honestly, what the algorithm found in each of these critical windows is absolutely fascinating. Let's break it down.
So looking at the first 20 weeks, Target's analysts noticed that women on the baby registry exhibited a very specific behavioral shift. Suddenly, they started buying calcium, magnesium, and zinc. They were loading up on these specific dietary supplements. Now, you might be thinking, well, lots of people buy vitamins every day. And you're right. But the algorithm detected a statistically significant, undeniably sharp spike in these exact minerals among pregnant women when compared to the general population. It's a simple biological necessity. A growing baby requires more nutrients. But when that biological need is translated into the digital world, it became the very first faint alarm bell in Target's predictive system.
As the timeline progressed into the second trimester, another really distinct pattern emerged from the data. The analysts noticed these women were suddenly buying larger quantities of unscented lotion. Again, lots of people buy lotion, but the data showed that women on the registry shifted away from their usual scented products specifically around the beginning of their second trimester. Why? Because pregnancy drastically heightens a woman's sense of smell and skin sensitivity. Their preference shifts rapidly away from heavily fragranced, irritating soaps and lotions. To you and me, that's just a skincare preference, but to the Target algorithm, that was a loud, undeniable data point indicating a progressing pregnancy. Finally, as the timeline was nearing the delivery date, the algorithm started looking for the ultimate confirmations. It tracked the sudden, urgent purchase of scent-free soap, extra-large cotton balls, hand sanitizers, and washcloths. Treat each of these items like a critical piece of evidence in a true crime data mystery. Anyone might buy hand sanitizer on a random Tuesday, but when a specific guest ID, one that previously spiked in zinc supplements and then shifted entirely to unscented lotion months later, suddenly starts hoarding massive quantities of hand sanitizer and extra-large cotton balls, the algorithm pieces the puzzle together perfectly. It's the biological nesting instinct. It's the urgent preparation for a sterile environment for a newborn, and it paints a crystal-clear picture in the data.
Chapter 4. The Pregnancy Prediction Score. This is exactly where complex mathematics meets consumer marketing.
The crucial point of this entire mathematical model comes down to this specific number, 25. Out of the tens of thousands of items lining their massive store shelves, Target's data scientists ultimately identified about 25 specific products. When analyzed together, in the right sequence and in the right quantities, these 25 items formed a remarkably powerful metric. It was never just one single item that gave the secret away. It was the synchronized symphony of these 25 everyday items being purchased in a highly specific, biological pattern over time.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the final result of all that intensive analysis, the pregnancy prediction score. This is an estimated metric that calculates a woman's due date to within a small window. By continuously tracking those 25 key items, Target could assign every female shopper a specific, evolving score. But they didn't just stop at predicting if a woman was pregnant. The algorithm was so deeply fine-tuned, so incredibly precise, that it could estimate her actual due date to within a very small window. This allowed Target to send promotional coupons timed to the very specific, highly emotional stages of the girl's pregnancy, exactly when her lifelong brand loyalties were most vulnerable to changing.
Chapter 5. The Privacy Threshold. Let's step back and look at the legal and ethical reality of this technology.
When you look at this practice purely from a legal perspective, there is a stark contrast between the legal reality and the disturbing concept at play here. The legal reality is that Target used standard transactional data used by all retail chains. They didn't tap phones, they didn't illegally hack into private medical records, they simply analyzed standard receipt data, which is perfectly legal. But the disturbing concept is that they were targeting a highly private life event. The contrast here is what makes this so fascinating. The data collection is standard modern commerce, but predicting a pregnancy, that is a deeply intimate, highly personal event. It's this paradox that makes the whole story feel so deeply unsettling.
The source material for this explainer actually argues that because of this disturbing dynamic, there are certain profound life events that should probably be completely off-limits to corporate data miners. Events like a terminal disease, a divorce, or a bankruptcy. Just think about the heavy implications if an algorithm started sending targeted ads based on predictive models for a terminal disease, knowing a patient is sick before their family does, or subtle shifts in grocery habits that confidently predict an impending, painful divorce, or a sudden change in brand preferences that signals a coming personal bankruptcy. These are profoundly sensitive, difficult human experiences, and when an emotionless algorithm treats them merely as opportunities for a well-timed marketing coupon, it strikes a very uncomfortable chord in our society.
And that brings us to the ultimate lingering question that this story leaves us with. What is the threshold between discovery of knowledge and infringement of privacy? In an age where every click, every swipe, and every seemingly mundane purchase is permanently recorded and analyzed, where exactly is that line? Just because a company has the technical capability to uncover our deepest secrets through our everyday actions, does that mean they should? It's a massive, provocative question that data scientists, lawyers, and all of us as consumers are going to be wrestling with for decades to come, especially as these algorithms only grow smarter and more invisible. Thank you for watching World Explain. See you in the next video.